Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our North Dakota Exact Path webinar, Accelerating Learning this Summer and Extending Access through September 2023. My name is Madison Michelle. I'm a marketing manager here at Edmentum, and I will be helping to moderate today's conversation. I'm also joined by Toby Drake, your North Dakota Services Program Manager. Together, her and I will be kind of hiding in the background of today's presentation, helping to field and answer your questions. So before we dive in today, I do want to quickly go over a few housekeeping items just to make sure we're all on the same page and can connect together today with some details on how you can participate. So we will leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end of today's presentation for Q&A. We ask that you use the Q&A feature to submit those questions. So at the bottom of your control panel, it should look something like you see on the screen here, where you've got the option to chat or the option to Q&A. And the Q&A area will allow you to submit those questions. So go ahead and throw those in there if you have them today. You'll also have a chat area. That's where you can share some feedback if you have it with us, or any audio issues that you might be experiencing. You can go ahead and put those in the chat area and we'll address those that way. And then as a final housekeeping reminder, before we introduce our presenters today, we are recording today's presentation. All registrants and attendees will automatically receive a link to that recording within 24 hours. So don't worry if you need to miss anything or step away, or you want to revisit any information, we will be recording today's presentation. So without further ado, let's go ahead and meet our presenters today. First, I want to introduce Reuben Spinner. Reuben brings over a decade of experience as a teacher, instructional coach, and program coordinator. He's currently our North Dakota education consultant here at Edmentum, and he also, in his prior days in the classroom, used Edmentum programs to impact learning as well. So very excited to have Reuben with us today. In addition, we also have Ann Ellefson. She's the director for the Office of Academic Support for the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction. So welcome to both Reuben and Ann, who you will be hearing from very shortly. I'm now at this time going to go ahead and turn it over to Reuben. Reuben, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here with you today. For the next hour, as we talk about our agenda, this is going to be a rundown. We are going to start by talking about the NDDPI memo, which is extending access through September 2023. From there, we are going to be giving an overview of North Dakota's Exact Path. We're going to present you with multiple ways to get started. In addition, if you've already started, we're going to give some tips and tricks on furthering your implementation. We're really going to dig in and talk about student learning paths. We'll do some educator features and some reporting. And then, as Madison said, we will wrap up with some Q&A.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ann Ellefson. I am the Director of Academic Support in the Department of Public Instruction here in Bismarck. I'm very excited to have you here today. It's great to see so many familiar North Dakota names in the attendee log. So thanks for being here and taking the time to learn about Exact Path if you aren't currently already an Exact Path using district. As it indicates on the slide, the DPI has announced, at the end of March, we announced that we will be extending Exact Path licenses at no cost to you, schools, students, and districts for those that are currently using it or will be jumping in to use it with Fidelity through the remaining weeks of school and throughout summer 2021. So by utilizing the next 4 weeks of school and or getting Exact Path up and running in your school with your students and in the district during summer 2021, you will be able to secure extended Exact Path licenses for your staff and students for 2 more school years, so through September 2023. Now, the clause that's catching people up is, what does it mean to be using with Fidelity? Here at the department, we recognize that for many schools and districts, there's 4 to 6 weeks of school left. That's still substantial amounts of time for students to be engaging and learning, or for schools to be reaching out with families to families on how might we use Exact Path as a learning tool throughout the summer months, or even build into your summer programming that the schools or districts might be using. So we encourage you to use these remaining weeks of school and summer 2021 to use that Exact Path program to provide opportunities for your students to learn. Here at the department, we will be pulling data the end of April, mid-summer, and then the end or mid-September of 2021 to determine usage, determine those accounts that are in and active, and those will be what we'll use for negotiation with Edmentum on their Exact Path contract continuation through September 2023. If you have questions specifically about unique scenarios or situations within your school, classroom, or district, feel free to reach out to me, Ann Ellefson. You can find my email address on the State Department's website or aellefson@nd.gov. I'd gladly walk through that over email or schedule a call with you. But for the rest of today's session, we'd love to hear from Reuben, and I'll pass the ball over to him to talk through what it might look like for the remaining weeks of school and summer.
Great, thanks, Ann. So as we really jump into Exact Path, we want to honor everyone on the call, recognizing that multiple districts might have multiple starting points. And so as we really think about Exact Path today, we're really going to break it down in terms of what Exact Path is and what it can do for your teachers and students to really drive some learning. If you are new to Exact Path and this is kind of your first experience where you are digging in and gaining some interest, Exact Path really begins with an adaptive diagnostic, and we will break that down and talk about it. We have an Exact Path diagnostic, but we also partner with NWEA and we partner with STAR. So you can use those leverage those diagnostics to create learning paths for your students. Because our second component with an Exact Path, after that diagnostic, students are going to have individualized learning paths created for them. It's going to be in the area of reading, math, and language arts. It's going to specifically target skill gaps for students across a K-12 continuum of grade levels. And so from a kind of airplane flyover view, that's what Exact Path is and can do for students. We're going to transition. We're going to talk about ways that you can be up and running and get started with an Exact Path, as well as, like I said, digging a little deeper for those schools and administrators and teachers who have really dug in and used it this school year. With Exact Path, as we had talked about, there are multiple ways to get started. And so if you are thinking about, as Ann said, these last 4 to 6 weeks of schools, or 4 to 6 weeks of school, and really wanting to leverage the program and really drive student learning, we want to make that accessible for you. And so we're going to break that down in terms of how to use assessments that you might already be giving in your district. As I said, the NWEA, the STAR. We're also going to break down that Exact Path diagnostic. Our third option is Exact Path, set up for our North Dakota accounts, are already using auto-generated grade level learning paths. And so whether it's a second grade student or a 10th grade student, as students log in, they already have accounts. They're going to have those grade level learning paths created for them that they can already access and engage in grade level material. Exact Path, as the learning path, is an assessment-driven instruction for K-12 reading, language arts, and math. It's really going to start with that diagnostic. And as we talked about, we can leverage those diagnostics that you are already offering in your district if in fact you're using NWEA or STAR. Those diagnostics are going to plot out a learning path for students, and we're going to dive in and really take a look at that. But really, it's going to, as I said, in those 3 areas of reading, math, and language arts, target specific skills within those contents to fill learning gaps for students. Exact Path, after that diagnostic, is really going to have a very strong instructional component to it. The curriculum is mastery-based, and it provides automatic remediation aligned to North Dakota standards. And it's going to really target that unique learner needs. And so as you have students who are learning on multiple levels, whether they are ready to learn below, at, or above grade level, students are going to have those targeted skills provided uniquely to them. Finally, we have a wealth of data that educators can access and use to drive student progress, to gauge student learning, and to create actionable next steps. If you are not already using a NWEA or a STAR, or you would rather use the Exact Path diagnostic, I want to give a quick rundown on what that diagnostic looks like, feels like from a student point of view. The Exact Path diagnostic is an adaptive assessment. The way it works is a student, when they engage in that diagnostic, whether it's math, reading, or language arts, they will start on an on-grade level question. So a third grade math diagnostic is going to start that student at a third grade math standard question. An 11th grade student would start at that 11th grade student. That diagnostic is going to quickly adapt or change dynamically in terms of how students are performing on that diagnostic. This snapshot provides a great graphic on a student's assessment or testing experience. You can see the first 4 questions the students answered incorrectly. The questions will level down, decrease in complexity, decrease in grade level, until we find those areas where students then begin answering questions correctly. As students then answer questions correctly, the questions will again increase in difficulty across standards and across grade levels within those specific contents. The assessments typically take between 25 to 40 minutes, depending on grade level, with less time in those early years for our littles and then more time as our students in middle school and high school take that diagnostic. It is wonderful and appropriate if students have to break those diagnostics into 1 or 2 sessions. So if you start it on a Monday, we definitely recommend that the student would finish that diagnostic on a Tuesday or Wednesday, knowing that this school year definitely demands ultimate flexibility. But that's kind of our best practice. That's what research shows, that if students don't take that diagnostic in 1 session, that 2 sessions and back-to-back consecutive days are going to provide the most valid results. Just like we talked about with the NWEA or the STAR, our adaptive diagnostic is then going to create individualized learning paths for students. Again, across a whole K-12 continuum, depending on where students are ready to access that material, whether they're below, at, or grade level. Students are going to have specific skills provided to them with a lesson, a practice, and then a mastery quiz to gauge student learning, gauge understanding of that material. And as educators, we're going to be able to see that data as well.
Hey, Reuben, do you mind if I jump in here? We've got a couple of good diagnostic assessment related questions. I thought maybe we could tick off real quick, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So one was from Shelley, and she asked, is it a one-time diagnostic? At her school, they use the NWA in the fall and in the spring, and they use those fall scores as the diagnostic. So does Exact Path use NWA spring scores? Could they import those spring scores to adjust, or are they stuck with maybe one learning path for the whole year?
Yeah, excellent question. Thanks for that, Shelley. So whether you're using our diagnostic or one of our partner integration assessment companies, we can have up to 4 testing windows to upload and adjust students' learning paths. And so if you uploaded scores in the fall and had students' learning paths created in the fall, and now you want to re-upload scores in the spring, those students' learning paths will adjust according to their spring scores to reflect student learning and student achievement there.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Reuben. We had another question that I think from Timothy, and we may want to follow up with him a little bit after the fact as well. But just trying to understand, we offer these integrations. We also offer the Exact Path diagnostic, and what might be some of the changes in that experience depending on which assessment path you might go down. Wanted to know if you had any initial sort of color to put around that question.
Sure. So the basic functionality of that program is going to stay the same. Students will receive individualized learning paths. It's going to run that whole K-12 continuum of skills within those areas of reading, math, and language arts. And so that student experience will remain consistent, whether it's the Exact Path Diagnostic or one of our partner districts. Some of the changes just come in terms of reporting and the access of data that we can measure student progress or student growth. So with some of our partner districts, it just appears a little different or looks a little different. But in terms of plotting out excellent mastery-based instruction and assessment pieces, it's going to be a very similar experience.
Perfect. Those are all the questions we had around the assessment. I think you can keep rolling forward.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Madison. Our third option is, as I mentioned, North Dakota accounts as part of our partnership. Every student in the state has already been created within your district's platform at grade level learning paths. And so as students log in for the first time, students are going to already have a learning path keyed up for them. The learning path is going to be on grade level. And so a kindergartner is going to have their kindergarten skill continuum learning path ready to go for them. Same for second grade, all the way through 12th grade. The benefits of that grade level learning path is that this is going to provide an excellent review for students as we are coming up on the end of a school year and really thinking about how to make the most of that last 4 to 6 weeks of school. Students are going to be able to have that expert instruction, their practice, the mastery quizzes. Educators are going to be able to have a great data point as to when students are working in the system, skill mastery determined an exact path. And that's going to be a ready to go resource that requires no setup for your school. Students can simply log in once they're provided their credentials. They can immediately engage in the program, and they're going to be up and running with very little prep work. Also with that, the assessment feedback regarding student progress is going to be available within that educator platform. Educators, we're going to be able to see when students are struggling. We're going to be able to see when students are excelling. And so as students are working within those grade level learning paths, we're going to have a bunch of actionable data that we can still use in our last 4 to 6 weeks to pull small groups or tailor individual instruction around what's happening with our grade level standards right now. Also, the beauty of these grade level learning paths is heading into summer, this is going to create a flexible learning approach that can be used in multiple learning models. Students, now that they're set up on Exact Path, they can log in, they can work their way through their grade level material this summer as excellent review, prepping for next year. Teachers can also use the Exact Path grade level learning paths to monitor and adjust and use that as part of their cadence for summer programming if in fact you're going to offer summer learning for students. And with Exact Path, it can be used in person in a blended learning model where students are working in stations while other students are receiving individual or small group instruction as teachers. It can also be used asynchronously or synchronously in virtual sessions as well. And so with those grade level learning paths, it's going to be a really great entrance points for educators and students to go ahead and get started. Before I go ahead and pivot into taking a look at the grade level learning paths, Madison, I'm just wondering if any more questions came up regarding any of the assessments or the grade level learning paths.
We did get one follow-up question from Shelley. Are those grade level learning paths available at the same time as maybe a diagnostic informed or NDDPI informed learning path?
Great question. Once you have either taken the Exact Path diagnostic or uploaded scores from one of our partner integrations, those grade level learning paths will be adjusted to reflect those changes, reflect those skill strengths within students. We can get information, Shelley, to you if in fact you are interested. We can upload scores without necessarily overwriting or overriding those students' current learning paths. And if you're interested in more information, we can get you that as well.
Perfect. That's all we have there for right now.
All right. As I am queued up, wanted to give you a student experience in terms of what this feels like for many of our students, especially if you are a new user thinking about using it in the next 4 to 6 weeks, or you are really thinking about using Exact Path for your students this summer. Wanted to drill in and take a look at that elementary through secondary learning experience. One thing of note is that our Exact Path interface will change depending on the grade level system of the student. And so our kindergarten through second grade students are going to have a slightly different experience than our third through fifth grade students, and the same holds true for our 6th through 12. The cadence and the rhythm of Exact Path is going to feel identical in terms of the lessons that they provide, the practice, and the quiz. In our K through 5 interfaces, our lessons are going to be very animated and engaging to hook our youngest learners. Our 6 through 12 lessons are going to be more mature and appropriate to that grade level. But no matter the interface, it's going to provide that expert mastery-based instruction at the skill level students need. So currently right now, we're taking a look at a 3 through 5 interface, knowing that our K through 2 will be slightly more animated, and our 6 through 12, it's going to look different, but the feel and the cadence is going to be the same between those 3 components. Students, as they engage, and we can take this either as students had a diagnostic created learning path, whether it's ours or an integration, or if you have students log in and they immediately engage in a grade level learning path, students will see in the areas of math, reading, and language arts, this one is queued up to math, the skills within their learning path. And so students can even take a look, they can see what skills they are working on within their content, they can see what domain that falls under. Students can click to engage in the lesson. Directly following that lesson, there is going to be practice. The practice is going to be 5 questions. It's going to be a quick formative check for students and teachers to really let us know, or let those students know, if they understood that material from the lesson. And then the last component of every module is going to be a mastery quiz. That mastery quiz, students are going to get a composite score. Every quiz is typically 5 questions. A 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5 is deemed skill mastery. When students master those lessons, those modules, teachers get alerted on their dashboard to let us know. If students don't get an 80%, we're also made aware of that. When we take a look at the teacher interface, we will notice that those students light up in orange. We get to know that they are struggling. We can provide some intervention remediation around there as well. And so what you'll notice is, as students are logging in, they're going to be able to navigate this as first-time users fairly easily as they work their way through lesson, practice, and quizzes. Within that skill continuum, the students will have that learning path that will chart out their areas of growth across that K-12 grade level. However, intentionally, Exact Path is only going to provide students 4 skills at a time. Those 4 skills are really to give students a focus area. After every 4 skills, the students are going to engage in a progress check, as seen here. That progress check will automatically unlock following those 4 skills once they're completed, each component of those modules. The progress check, you can think of that as a larger summative assessment. It's going to be a combination of questions across all 4 of those skills, 20 questions on each progress check. The goal there again is an 80% in each skill for mastery. Mastery is going to be determined or shown to students and educators by way of earning trophies. Within the Exact Path platform, as we're going to talk about later today, if you've been using Exact Path, we have an area where we can assign additional assignments to full classes, small groups, or individual students. Again, we can drive that through content down to domains and specific skills to provide expert instruction in areas of most need, or whether we want to review grade level material or provide even preview of next year's contents. If you choose to use the Exact Path Diagnostic when students are going to engage there, they can go ahead and click on tests. They'll see by the notifications that they have a test waiting for them. That's where they're going to access and use their diagnostics. That is our brief overview of the student interface, but really just wanted to give you an overview of how students would navigate this and what their experience would be as you are beginning to really queue students up and give them a chance to experience Exact Path. Sorry about that. There we go. Diving into the logistics of Exact Path a little bit more, we saw this on the student interface, but wanted to make sure that everyone here knew exactly the components of a learning path. The students in every learning module will begin with a lesson. That lesson is going to be a mix of text or engaging video. In our animated feature, it's going to be character-based, where students really learn that material. Following that lesson, there's going to be practice. That practice is typically 5 questions. Students get immediate feedback on each question as to whether they were correct or incorrect. And then following that practice, students engage in that quiz. That quiz is going to be tied specifically to that lesson. The goal there again is going to be a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5, meaning an 80% or higher on mastery. If students don't get mastery that first time through on the quiz, students will redo the lesson, redo the practice, and have a second opportunity to take that quiz. Again, if we see students are struggling on the teacher side within the data, they light up in orange, we know, and we can provide some intervention remediation around there as well. After every 4 skills, as I said, the students will take that progress check. That progress check will be where skill mastery is determined. Again, looking at an 80% or higher on the progress checks in each skill so that we know the students have mastered these skills, giving us as educators multiple data points within Exact Path. As I go ahead and transition to the educator point of view, Madison, I'm just wondering if any questions came up around the student usability or navigation.
We did not get any questions there, so you must have done a great job.
All right, thank you. Next, we want to pivot and take a look at that educator functionality. As students are working within the learning paths, we want to take a look at the progress monitoring. So how do we know that our students are mastering skills? What do we do if students aren't mastering skills? What are some best practices around there? Next, we want to talk about that content search. When I was in the student interface, we talked about the assignment feature. I want to give a little exploration there around the content search so that as educators, we can pull relevant content to either provide to students in these last month to 6 weeks of school, or even to structure out for a summer program and provide ongoing content to students throughout the summer, as well as talking about some of our trophies and challenges, which really promote engagement for students, really promote them to engage in the system, really take ownership of their learning while providing some fun incentives as well. As I jump into the teacher account, the first thing we are going to talk about is the current activities and the knowledge map area. So I'll give a second while I get queued up there. As I am logging into Exact Path, when I want to take a look at progress monitoring students, as I said, our 2 main ways are going to be through the math and reading areas. So when I click on math, I have my current activities and I see my knowledge map as well. When I click current activities, the first area that I'm going to click on is I'm going to click on my class that I want to take a look at. These classes will show all of my students within this class. And just as that student interface really provides those 4 skills at a time, as an educator, we can also see the 4 skills that any of our students are working on within Exact Path at a time. We can take a look at our struggling students. As I said, they're going to light up in orange. And so when we think about students who in Exact Path might need a little bit more support, we can click any of these actionable tiles. What I really appreciate about this is that we can actually go in after practices or after mastery quizzes, we can hit that review button. This is going to show us the mastery quizzes that students took, the answers that they provided. This is going to be an expert tool for educators as they are providing support to students. They can run through these questions with students, really understand why students provided the answer that they did and correct any errors right there. We also have within Exact Path multiple resources. And so if we click that resources, we're going to see videos, We're going to see print materials, possibly lesson plans. And so as we are thinking about providing additional support to students who might be struggling, we can simply click Assign. We can choose that student or multiple students. And these videos will, or additional material, digital material will pop up right in that student's teacher assigned area to provide additional help as well. We could also, on the left-hand side of any of these 4 skills, we can see trophies that students have earned. These are going to be based off students' progress checks. And so when we are thinking about skill mastery and those summative checks that come at the end of every learning path, well, or at the end of every 4 skills, we're going to be able to gauge whether or not students are truly proving mastery, understanding that material. What I also wanted to point out is our building block feature. Within those current activities, you might see students after they've been working pop up with these 3 red squares. That's going to signify on a progress check, students did not master that skill. And so they are going to be provided a building block, which will either be that skill in a alternative lesson, or it's going to be a prerequisite skill that will help scaffold student learning to bring them back to the original learning path placement. And so if you are looking at using the student on grade level learning paths, it's important to understand that those progress checks are also going to dynamically change students' learning paths based on their achievement and performance with an exact path. And so if we have students who are working on a 4th grade learning path as 4th graders and struggling with 4th grade material, when they get to those progress checks, students who are not proving mastery will have those remedial building blocks built into their learning paths automatically to provide that scaffolding and instruction for students to help them be successful as well. Next, as we think about progress monitoring tools for students, we can take a look at that knowledge map. The knowledge map, again, is going to show us not only achievement of students within their current 4 skills, but I like to say that this is kind of a airplane flyover view of my entire class. Our green blocks are going to show where students have assessed above. That's going to be true whether it's the Exact Path Diagnostic or one of our partner integration programs. And so when we are taking a look, we can see what students have assessed above specific grade levels and skills to give us just a further understanding of our class strengths and areas of growth. We can also see building block material. All of these tiles are going to be clickable. And so when we want to dig in, we can preview lessons. Again, we can preview and review practices and mastery quizzes. And so as your students are really digging in and learning from Exact Path, this is going to be a great way to not only progress monitoring students through the knowledge map to understand where they are as learners, but this is also going to help me gauge my instruction as a teacher. If I am a 6th grade teacher and this is my 6th grade class, I can see that I have some students who have assessed above 6th grade skills, but I have some students who will be ready for 6th grade skills. It helps me gauge my instruction on a day-to-day basis, as well as being able to provide support as students learn with an exact path. As we talked about, we also provide the opportunity to assign additional content. The learning paths are kind of the meat and potato of Exact Path. It's where students are going to get that individualized, tailored instruction and assessment pieces. But we also recognize that there is oftentimes a need to provide supplemental on grade level material, or for students who are working above grade level, provide them opportunities as well. And so when we are taking a look at our My Classes page, we can take a look and dig into our content search. Our content search allows us to search by skill or by standard. For our example, we're going to take a look at reading. We're going to dig into and take a look at 3rd grade. We're going to look at reading foundations, and we're going to look at syllable patterns. This is going to provide a glimpse of all of the resources that we can use with students with an Exact Path. This is going to show us, one, the learning path resources. These are the modules that students can see within Exact Path. And so they could possibly have this built into their learning paths, but it's also going to be a great resource to either extend student learning or review grade level content as we are thinking about using this in our last month of school. If we are teaching a reading, a math, or a language arts lesson, and we really want to provide a preview of that material to students, we can provide the learning path resources to students so they can engage in that material, they can do the practice and the mastery quiz. That's going to provide a wealth of data to educators to be able to have them understand where students' learning is at. Maybe by previewing syllable patterns at a third grade level when I'm ready to teach it, I can review those mastery quiz scores. I can see what students really got it and understood it, and I can give them some extension activities. Or I can see that a lot of my students struggled with that, and that's going to help me gauge my instruction as well. And it's, in addition, going to be a great guide to really scaffold student instruction. When I decide I want to use that learning path resource, I can preview it. I can make sure that lesson is exactly what I want to use. I can click that assign button. When I click on my class, I'm going to have the opportunity to select all students if I want to use this as a whole class learning material, or maybe I want to have select students do it. I can simply just select specific names and assign that material to students. I can choose due dates. So if I want to give a week's to have students do this, or a day, or really just no end date, and I can have students access this content throughout summer, I can do that as well. Also, as we saw with that resources drawer, we are going to be able to see videos, we're going to be able to see print materials, lesson plans, and so I encourage educators as they are thinking about using Exact Path, this is going to be that next step beyond learning paths to really provide students some expert instruction, whether it's previewing or reviewing, to allow for student standard mastery. And then finally, want to talk about challenges. The challenges are going to be a great way to encourage student time on task. Our challenges are created to really encourage students from the student interface. They can see how many minutes they have worked toward within the system. When we want to set up that new challenge, we can come over, we can create it. We can give that challenge a title, reading time on task, and then we can choose when we want to make that available. If we are trying to encourage students in this last month of school, we can set it for a month, or we can do a week by week challenge to really engage students. Also, if we are thinking about providing students some summer incentive to log in and engage with those learning paths so that they can build skills throughout summer, we can also make that available there as well. We can go ahead, we can set the dates. For this one, I'll make it a 2-week challenge. You can make it in the areas of math, reading, language arts. We'll go ahead and we'll set this for reading. For our beginning challenges, we will really focus on that time spent on learning path activities. And then our amount per student, our minutes, that's really going to be the amount of minutes over that whole challenge. And so as we're thinking the 14th through the 30th, that's about 10, 13 instructional days. If we want students to spend the recommended amount of time, which is about a half an hour to 45 minutes per week per content area, times 5, that's about 150 minutes. Students will be encouraged to work, they'll be able to see their progress. You can also provide incentives to students. So whether it's end of year type celebration, a certificate on the wall, a positive phone call home, even incentivizing throughout the summer to encourage student use. You can let students know what the reward is. You can choose that challenge badge. And then all of your students within your class are going to be pre-populated. You can make this challenge for a full class. You can make it for a small group of students. In this case, we're going to use our full class. We're going to save those changes. Our challenge has been saved. It is now active, and our students are really encouraged to hit those time on task, those minutes within the system. And then as we are thinking about best practices with Exact Path for our tier 1 differentiation. As we are thinking about using this with our students in the last month of school or really gearing up for summer learning, we are really recommending about 40 to 60 minutes per week per subject. So that would be across the areas of reading, math, and language arts. This does not have to happen all at once. You can do 20 minutes 2 times per week or 15 minutes 5 days a week. This is really going to encourage students to be in the system, really engaged in that personalized learning. And then additionally, if you were really wanting to use this in a tier 2 or a tier 3 intervention, really leveraging Exact Path and an MTSS model to repair foundations and fill gaps from previous years, we really are thinking about using this in about 90 minutes to 150 minutes per week per subject. With that, Madison, I will throw to you unless any questions came up that we should address right now regarding student learning paths or teacher functionality.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Reuben. That was a great presentation. We are seeing some questions come in, so we'll get to those in a second. And I definitely want to encourage folks that may be thinking of their questions right now. We do have a decent amount of time left, so go ahead and pop open that Q&A area and drop those in there. As we queue up for that, I did want to share just a few announcements and some quick links for some folks here. If you are in the camp of you have not started using Exact Path yet, but you would like to get started for the remainder of the school year and for the summer, as Anne described at the front of the call, you can go to this site here, and I will drop this in the chat as well. This is our main Edmentum page. If you'll forward a couple of clicks there, Reuben, get some of that to pop up. You will also see this big pink button over here, this sign up for free. That will take you to a form where you can share some information with us, and that will help get you into our queue so we can get access for you. When we do give access to you, because I know we had a question come in around, who will be set up when that access in fact is turned on. As Reuben described, all students will be dropped in with those on grade level learning paths just to enable you to get a really quick start in the program, as well as administrators will be set up. So you can just set up those teacher users and set up your classes, and you will be off to the races, getting that implementation turned around very quickly. So that is the place to go if you have not requested access yet and would still like to. In addition to that, we have one more resource that many of you may be familiar with that I want to call out as well, and that is our Getting Started page here. So again, the URL for this one is in here as well. Make sure and follow up with when you get the recording link, I'll give you guys access to both of these links as well. So you can refer to this. The Getting Started page is one that we have created specifically for North Dakota, for all of you. This is your one-stop shop for resources that include on-demand training sessions, specifically created for North Dakota, step-by-step instructions for getting started, additional success stories and testimonials from other North Dakota educators that have been using the program, as well as some other tips and tricks and summer learning resources. So that is a great place for you to go back and shop and continually refer to, as we will be updating it with a lot of great information. I anticipate we will put this recording on that page as well, so another great way to access it. So that is kind of it for me as far as just some housekeeping, some closing up of some resources here. A few of those links that I just went over are on the page again here. If you didn't quite write them down or screenshot them and you wanted to go ahead and grab those, they are here for you again. And with that, Reuben, we can go ahead and kind of parlay here into some Q&A. So I will get started with a great question that we had from Timothy here around how can we use this program during the summer if we don't have summer school and we don't have teachers that are on contract? Oh, and you're on mute.
rookie mistake. Exact Path is going to be great, especially as we think about leveraging those grade level learning paths for students. As they log in, as you provide students credentials, students can really log in and engage in that grade level content from the grade level that they just wrapped up. That's going to be a great review for students, narrowing in on those key skills across their grade level. As students work, as we talked about, if you're running up against that challenge where you may not have teachers to staff a summer program, those progress checks will dynamically change that student's learning path. And so if you have students who are struggling within the system, those progress checks will provide those scaffolded skills to students. And so it's going to provide that immediate and automatic remediation for students. And so that's going to be that kind of first step. Additionally, if you are using either the Exact Path diagnostic or the one of our integration partners, if you load those scores, students are going to have those individualized learning paths provided for them throughout that summer. They're going to have that access when they log in. So again, as students are working, even though it's individualized, those progress checks will dynamically change their learning paths. And then finally, the content search that we talked about, maybe before summer, you have a grade level team who puts together some key content, either from that third grade student or third grade class who really want to focus in on 8 key skills across reading or math. You can queue those up, you can create that class, you can assign those to students and make that due date last all summer. Students can really log in and engage in that content at their discretion, at their will. So you could use the learning path or the content feature to really provide that student engagement and learning throughout summer.
Great ideas. That's wonderful. Thank you, Reuben.
Madison, if I could jump in as well.
Yeah.
I'll also say, as parents and families, we are looking for ideas of educational activities we can do in the summer as well. So by setting up your class and having maybe a briefing with the parents or an easy access, session for the parents, I think families are looking for strategies to address educational needs over the summer. And if you're able to do it for a whole class, whole school, whole district, we encourage you to do so. And I'm speaking as a mom of a couple kids.
Love that addition. Thank you, Anne. We also had a question, it's a good one for you, Reuben. What training opportunities will be offered over the next 2 years of implementation?
Sure. So as part of our Exact Path, we do have the Getting Started page that has on-demand modules, and then we will provide ongoing support to schools and districts. Toby, if you want to chime in about future plans to support our North Dakota partners.
Thanks, Reuben. So we are looking at a couple of different things. Sorry, I'm thinking that. For educators, we will have a few sessions before school ends. So if people want to attend those, and we'll send out those for teachers. And then we're also looking for some summer programs that we may be able to offer with educators and administrators to see if that'll help you as well. So we just haven't rolled anything out yet. We're just checking on a few things first, and then we'll get those rolled out.
And I would say if you have special needs that you know of, please reach out to us, to Ann Ellefson at the State Department, and we will ensure that we'll figure out a plan to, yes, how do we get this to accommodate your needs? So we need to also hear from you. Do you want asynchronous learning, synchronous learning? What do you want that to look like for your staff?
Yep, and you could email me too. It's just toby.drake@edmentum.com. Most of you have probably received an email or two from me as well. So my email's on that. Just reach out and let us know what you're thinking or what you would like, and we'll be able to set something up. We'd be happy to.
Wonderful. All right, we have some good questions around fidelity, and I know you've sent some responses in already, but I think that there's maybe some general ideas here that we might want to bubble up.
Yes.
So,
go ahead, Madison. Do you want to summarize the questions?
Yeah, I can tee up the question. So the question from Nancy was around thinking about those recommendations, Reuben, that you shared on the previous slide for how much time to spend in the program. And if educators and students are not able to meet those thresholds, does that mean they are not using the program with fidelity and may not qualify for extended use of the program? So Anne, I think you had a great response there. I'll let you chime in.
So yeah, we recognize that Edmentum and Exact Path recommends 90 minutes per subject area. And as I indicated, I'm a mom of 3 kids, so I get it. That might be challenging to do in school or even out of school through the summer. What the State Department is looking for is that we're not neglecting the opportunity in front of us. We still have 4 to 6 weeks left of school that we could stand up and begin our students to be exposed to the program and used. We are not saying that your students need to be in this program for 90 minutes in order to continue. However, we do recognize that there are districts that have accounts and students that have accounts that are sitting there and there is no activity at all, no minutes, or maybe there was some time that was back in September of 2020, but nothing since. Those accounts would not be extended, would not be renewed. So in a specific question, it was a little bit nuanced with what would this look like over the summer, and some of my students might not use it over the summer. We will be taking a combination of the data. We will be taking your school data or your classroom data from the last year of experience, or if you're just starting, the last 4 to 6 weeks of school, plus summer data. If you're not rolling it out until summer, we'll consider that. And with those data sets, we'll make decisions on what it looks like moving forward. Now, let's say that there is a scenario where you can't get it launched. I do want to remind you that there is a lot of money that is coming to schools and districts in the form of ESSER $2 and ESSER $3, or even in non-public schools, we have EANS funds and services. Those are all allowable expenses for those other programs. So if it's a delayed implementation and you really wanted to expand it to the high school, but it's not feasible to do between this current spring and the summer, know that you could pay for these on your own with Exact Path or Edmentum with those other funding sources.
Terrific. Thank you, Anne, for clarifying. I think that goes along really well with Carrie's question here that I think you sort of addressed, but I would imagine this is also going to be a common one. So if we use it for intervention, not all students, is that still considered with fidelity if it's a subset of learners versus maybe all learners?
Yes, Carrie, so to answer your question, it is okay to use this as an intervention. And if a school chose to use it as an intervention, the State Department would commit to extending your licenses as an intervention. So in some schools, it is only in their Title I program or only with their distance learning kids. And let's say that's, 25, 50 licenses in that elementary school. We would extend those licenses for that elementary school till 2023. Now, if it is something that you are rolling out to all students in your school, we would expect some sort of all student use in these remaining 4 to 6 weeks of school and or over the summer. And Nancy, I see your question as well. I know that you're in a large district and there might be just a couple individuals or teachers that are passionate or using the program. It would be extended for those, for that number of students. It does not need to be all teachers in a district in order to be implementing with fidelity. We're really looking at opportunities for students. We want students to continue to have access to learn, whether it's in the last 6 weeks of school or over the summer. And those educators that can help expand that access to the kids, we will continue to fund that access till 2023.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anne, for all of that additional detail and clarification. I know the folks on the line are very appreciative. At this time, we have answered all of the questions that we've received either in chat or aloud here with the group. So I'll go ahead and do my closing remarks, but if you do have any Q&A, we'll hold on the line for a couple more minutes here to make sure that any last questions that come through we are able to address. So final remarks here are just a reminder that yes, we have in fact recorded today's presentation, and that recording will be sent out in the next 24 hours with some of the additional links to the page to sign up, or the Getting Started page if you would like some quick access to both of those. I also want to take a time here to thank our presenters today. Thank you very much, Reuben. Thank you, Anne, for being on the line, for joining us today, for providing your expertise and your insights. We are most appreciative. And thank you very much to all of our attendees for spending an hour with us today to learn more about Exact Path. We are very excited for the continued opportunity to do great things in the state of North Dakota.
Thank you all for your time, and we appreciate you being here. Please reach out to any of us and we will do our best to answer your questions.